Hello Daisy Chains. This is just going to be a really quick video to talk about a couple of things that I've been thinking about recently since the new year started, with regard to basically just adding a little bit of spice to the proceedings when it comes to your spirituality and helping you maybe to progress onto a new level or to accept some new truths that might sort of be hiding at the back of the closet or stuck at the back of the brain, kind of just to get the blood flowing, I suppose you could say. And I think that's something that I really want to achieve with my spiritual path for the next few months. I was thinking back to what I was saying on the Finding Fulfillment at Work video about the performance coach who came to see us and about the exercise he suggested for us, which was called 100 Days, which was where we basically put forth some goals and ambitions for the first 100 days, so that's the first 3 months of the new year with regard to work, and then at the end of those 3 months assess how much of it we were able to achieve. And that sort of sets a small realisable goal, but it also helps us to realise how much more we can pack in that we maybe didn't really believe we could pack in, or how much more we could discover or explore that we may not have felt we had the time for, that we might not have felt we had the energy for. So that kind of got me thinking about how to put that into the spiritual pathway as well. And I think I'll probably write my own little list of ambitions and things for my 100 days, because I think that's something that I'd actually really like to incorporate into my spiritual practice. And there's a lot of new things going on for me this year with regard to that, but I'll get into that into another video. But yeah, I think that's something that I'd like to do, the 100 days exercise, and feel free to join me if you fancy it. Okay, so the first thing I would say is feed your mind some new treats, because that's what I do when I feel that things are stagnating, or when I feel that I'm actually on the verge of reaching a next plateau in some sense, but there's some way in which I'm feeling stagnant or unable to actually put my best foot forward. I feed my mind some new treats. I begin to study a new subject. Maybe it's not a subject that I'm even particularly passionate about. Maybe it's something that came out of the blue. Maybe it's something that maybe doesn't obviously connect itself to spirituality. Maybe it's something a little bit more subtle, or something that lends itself to some part of the pathway that I've not quite explored yet. I think it's important sometimes to begin a new method of study so that you can deepen your spiritual ideas surrounding that area of study, even if it doesn't immediately seem to connect to divinity or the metaphysical. That doesn't matter. I think that for me, everything has a spiritual undertone eventually, because I'm a spiritual person, I'm a spiritualist, so it all kind of comes into play in that way. But I think that beginning a new subject can kind of make you feel fresh. It can take you out of that box that you feel you're in. So I think that's important. And I think if you go for a walk, take a new route, if you're eating, cook something new. Maybe if you're going on a trip, buy a magazine that you wouldn't normally buy. Try and invest yourself in a subject that wouldn't normally catch your eye. Just kind of take yourself out of that box. Make yourself walk around your brain a little bit more. Make yourself look at the world in a new way, in a fresh way. Do something with your weekend that you wouldn't normally do. If somebody advises or asks you to accompany them along with something that you wouldn't normally be interested in, go do it. Just take yourself out of the box, and always remember that you're doing it to deepen your own sense of well-being, your own comprehension of what this world is all about, and to incorporate it into your spiritual journey in some way, even if it's only just to journal about anything that came up with regard to your practice when you were in the moment doing this thing that really kind of you were exploring for the first time, or that you weren't intimately connected with emotionally or spiritually, but that you were trying your hand at to kind of see what it brought out of the box for you, kind of thing. Another thing that I'd say I would do, and that you should do, is to reflect on your past successes and your past setbacks or downfalls as well. I like to think that with the new year here, it's a much easier time to look back on everything that the last 12 months encompassed and incorporated. So I think it feels like crossing a threshold, rather like you do in the Three of Wands in Tarot, that threshold, you're standing on that barrier. And I feel like the actual presence of the countdown to New Year and then the crossover to the New Year gives you a fantastic feeling. It's almost like a repository of energy, almost. It's that feeling that something has really changed, that something has really flipped over. A little bit like how you feel when you notice that spring has turned into summer, or summer has turned into autumn. There's that one moment during the day, that 1 second when you smell the newly fallen leaves, or you step on a particularly crunchy leaf and you think, it's now autumn. There's that moment when you walk out of that door and you know the season has changed officially. That's the kind of moment that we're after here. We're after that moment that New Year really offers to us, where we think, now I can look back. Now I can look back on the whole of the last 12 months and everything it encompassed, and actually look at what the lessons were for real. So I think one of the best ways that I've done this is actually to create some kind of timeline. And this is quite difficult to do. It takes quite a lot of mental energy. Basically, an A3 piece of paper is best really, because you need to actually look at the overall structure. You start the line at January and you run right through to December of 2012 in this case. And then basically just use your memory to go back to where you were in January and actually pick through month by month what the spiritual ups and downs were. Where were the highs, where were the plateaus, and where were the struggles, the crises, or the lows for you. So this is quite difficult to do because it does involve actually picking your own brain, but I think that it's actually quite an emotional journey as well, because you're taking yourself right back to where you were this time last year, and you're really considering exactly where the journey took you. And I would advise maybe starting with a straight line and just writing down the points at which you remember certain spiritual things happening to you, certain sort of spiritual significant points. But then after that you can actually illustrate your timeline, if you like, with different auras or fractals or pictures or faces or anything you like. Collage maybe, for example. You could use an art book to actually select one or two of the significant spiritual points in 2012 and then actually collage or paint or write in depth about them. So you're actually sort of picking out the one or two main elements of the spiritual journey that affected you, or that gave you those lessons that you want to now continue into practice in 2013. So I think that's something that you can do, and it helps you bond with yourself as well, and it also helps you to just give yourself that moment to congratulate yourself for whatever it is you learned in 2012 and for surviving the setbacks or the disappointments or the sadnesses that you did. Because sometimes I think we forget to do that. The last thing that I would say with regard to adding spice to the stew is to remember to give yourself gaps in your day to allow for something unscripted to happen. If you have a very regimented spiritual practice, or you have certain areas of spiritual study that you have a schedule for, if there's something that you've been doing for a long time, you follow some traditional path or another, and you feel pretty sure that you are going to be doing that for the rest of your life, then that is awesome and it is to be respected and it's commendable and it's obviously very nourishing for you. But if you allow it to become too regimented, then you can also find yourself going through the motions at times. And sometimes if it's too scripted or it's too stuck to the plot, you'll find that there isn't a lot of time for something unscripted to happen. And I think that once or twice in my life in the past, that's where a spiritual struggle has come along. I wouldn't necessarily call it a crisis, but I would call it some kind of struggle whereby I went quite a long time without feeling any sense of awe. And by awe, I kind of mean that oneness with divinity, but that humility in the face of it, that dark joy. It's like a cross between fear and bewilderment, and also the feeling that I get when I stand in front of an incredible piece of art. It's just, I don't know, it's a really raw, very significant emotion for me, and as a pantheist I feel it's probably central to what the spiritual journey is all about in my case. And I think that the reason I sometimes went a few months without feeling anything like that, and I started to get a little bit fluttery and a little bit uneasy about my connection with divinity and my involvement in it, was because I didn't allow for anything unscripted to happen. I was going through the motions, and it was normally a time when I was really invested in one area of study or another, to the point where it was becoming quite regimented and I was becoming really quite devoted to it, and it more, I don't know, spirituality became quite scholarly. And if you're like me and you love kind of expanding your cranium in that way, then you will understand that sometimes it doesn't allow for anything unscripted to happen, or you find that you are thinking more than you're doing, you know, or the spontaneity goes out of it. So always remember to try and keep that spontaneity in, or allow spontaneity to grab you by the throat sometimes, because that's where the magic really is, I feel. And I think sometimes when spirituality is such a central spoke of who you are as a person, it can be very difficult to allow for the unscripted, as I like to call it. So this is just a reminder to everyone out there to kind of let yourself go, let your guard down, let the earth come to you, and let spirit come to you, as well as you kind of investing yourself in spirit. Let spirit turn your head a little bit from time to time, you know, let it do its work to make you feel freshly inspired and to make you feel that spirituality is still relevant and it's still an incredible part of your life that can surprise you even now, as kind of like a ripe old spiritual practitioner who may have felt they've seen it all. You know, there is still more to see, and allow your spiritual path to do that for you. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'm going to go and watch some videos now because I've noticed there's lots of goodies uploaded, so thank you very much also for sharing your paths with me. It's always a pleasure. Bye.